Brant Brown.
You can use that one too.
Thursday, Ross. Thursday. Yeah, I guess. Gotta be there at 10:45. Game is until I think 3:15. And then once I have all the ceremonial first pitches and all the other, the Clydesdales and the parade of red jackets and everything.
Before you go?
I took the day off for working hard today, so I figured I might as well get done by myself. It's all right. She spent the weekend here at her dad's, and every time she does it, unique one.
Test, test.
I would just go to the outdoors or somewhere and not go home.
Test, test.
You're good. All right, I got 5:30, so let's do the pledge. All right, can we get a roll call, Sandy?
Nathan Parchman.
Here.
Jessica Lott. Here. Stephanie Small here. Jim Campbell. Here. Andrea Foney. Here. And Jim Blackburn.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, before we get started, just want to let everybody know that if you do have anything to say, we do ask for public comments and public input, but we want to make sure that it's not pointed at any council members or any individuals. You have 5 minutes to speak on your topic, and if you have other things you want to talk about, that's fine, but just make sure that you're not calling anyone out specifically, and you're talking about the subject as a whole, not to point anyone out alone. So that being said, we'll get into the business. Just wanted to make sure that because we got a topic that might have some discussion. 2.1, Sandy.
You want approval of minutes?
Oh, yep. 1.3, backing up. Can I get approval of the February 24th, 2025 minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Can I get a yes if you agree?
Yes.
Always, yep.
Nay if no? Okay, they pass. Made up some new words there. All right, Sandy, 2.1.
Okay, so tonight we're looking at approving the FY26 annual budget. This is a budget that we have seen starting back in January. So all of them have been briefed in the appropriate committees. So tonight we are going over the final details. Whoops, I'm sorry, the final details of what we want. So this is the final budget summary. So we're looking at approving a balanced budget of $108,436,554. This is a 9% decrease from last year. You'll see on this form it says budget without interfund transfers, and that's really the amount we're looking at, $98,581,000. But with fund accounting, you have transfers from this account to the other account, so it kind of doubles up amount. So our true expenses and revenues is about $98 million. So that is one thing that we did change from when I presented this last month. We just had a few changes. One was in '08 under the fire department. There was a cash reserve account where we were moving money to cash, but then we were putting money in cash reserve, so it's just a cleanup thing. The Bill O'Fallon Trust Fund, we added this. This was something that was not in the February meeting, but we discussed at the February, so this now includes the Bill O'Fallon Trust Fund, and I'll go over that next. And the other change, we did have an increased cost for the Woodstream bypass. So those are the only changes that were really made excuse me, to the budget from when it was originally presented. The other thing I have on here is a large spend detail reflecting any of those changes. Remember that the large spend detail, once it is approved in this budget, council will not see it again for approval. It's basically saying these projects, items are approved going forward for the budget. They will follow any per our purchasing manual, if they needed to go out for bids or anything like that, you'll see that, but as far as the approval of the project, you will not see that. I talked about the Bill O'Fallon Trust project, so as we discussed in February, these are the items that were decided to move forward with. We have the alert station, or I'm sorry, the alert system for the fire stations, the EMFs, the north parking lot, phase 1, the lights at the sports park, and then we have the additional north parking lot. These are with lights at Sports Park Phase 2. I did make a notation. We did talk about having an entrance on Porter Road, kind of depending on bids and a few other things. So should that go over a bit, I did make a notation that that was something that was discussed, but again, that will come back, once we get a proposal or question or amount on that. Excuse me. This next one is just kind of a dashboard showing all the projects that have come out of this capital fund. We go back all the way to FY15. We did change the title of this a few years ago when we started the Bill O'Fallon Trust Fund. So that's why it's also the capital improvement. So some of those projects you'll see where we started paid from the Bill O'Fallon sales tax starting here in FY23. So these are the projects that have been allocated from the Bill O'Fallon Trust Fund. And then the other thing that we've added to this is our strategic plan. And this is an update of where we were. As you remember, we do a strategic plan. We did year 1 last year, and we're year 2, and we're showing all the projects that are in strategic plan, if they're complete, if they're in progress, if, for instance, if they're budgeted. Here we've got budgeted, and there's notes to go along with them. So that's more of an informational type piece, so you can keep track of how we are doing with our strategic plan. And that is everything that I have included in the budget for approval. The next steps would be, there'll be a public hearing. It'll go to council at our next April council meeting for first reading, and then final reading in the April 17th, I think. So.
All right. Thanks, Sandy. Anybody on the committee have any questions or comments? Jessica?
I've commented on this before. I intend to support the budget as it is, but I just want to reiterate that I disagree with the $50,000 allocation for the residential facade program.
Thank you. Anyone else on the committee?
I'd like to commend the staff for doing a really solid scrub on the budget. In a time of rapidly increasing costs, to come in lower than last year is really remarkable. So I want to thank the staff for their work on that and presenting a budget that's truly balanced.
Thanks, Jim. Anyone else? Council? Anybody from the public? All right, and I'll reiterate what Jim said. I know you guys have been working on that, and there's a lot from all the different departments, so we appreciate it, and thanks for all the work there. But if there's no other comments, one last chance. All right, I'll ask for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Seconded.
Got a motion and a second. Roll call, Sandy?
Parchman,
Yes.
Lott,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Foney,
Yes.
Blackburn.
Yes.
Okay, so that will move on to first reading.
Okay, motion carries. All right, we'll move to 2.2, ordinance establishing an amusement tax. Sandy?
I'm turning
Grant?
this over to Grant.
Yes, I will take this one. So what we're looking at today in the Finance and Administration Committee under 2.2 is implementing and codifying an amusement tax in the City of O'Fallon Code of Ordinances. We discussed this, and the reason why it's in this committee and not the one following this is because this is actually going to be applied citywide. Now, I say that because it's codified in our Code of Ordinances, but the ordinance as written does not apply a 5% amusement tax to anybody in the City of O'Fallon unless those prospective businesses come back to the City Council and ask for a redevelopment agreement, essentially choosing to tax their own users and patrons for reimbursable costs under the Illinois statute of a business district. And so we'll go into a little bit greater detail in the next meeting about the business district proposed for Park Place. But I do want to kind of introduce this as this conversation started with this amusement tax well before Park Place ever was a thought. There was a user in O'Fallon, and it was the movie theater that had some mind subsidence issues. And as we were talking to them on how they were going to finance these improvements that they had to make, they're very limited on their price of ticketing by the box offices. So, and I've learned a lot from them as well. The first few weeks a movie comes out, they're not able to change ticket prices. And furthermore, those ticket prices go to the box office or go to the movie studios, and it's all structured. So they came to us kind of looking on ways on how they can make these substantial improvements and fixes for their mind subsidence issues. And so that's how this conversation started. Now, getting back to the theaters, they were able to submit that to insurance and get those repaired and well underway. So, but we had this on the shelf when Park Place came into the conversation because a lot of their uses are not going to be sales tax generators that would help collect that 1% business district tax that's generated on sellable goods. A lot of it's going to be entertainment-based, so rock climbing, golf rentals, pickleball, anything like that that you don't sell a tangible good and charge sales tax, has no vehicle through the business district statute. And so this tonight, 2.2, I'm sorry, would create and codify the ability for the City Council to provide a 5% amusement tax within a redevelopment agreement for certain businesses if they wish to come back to the council and request so. Of that 5%, 4%, so how these work, just like business districts are, the builders or the companies would front this money to make these major improvements. So later tonight, we'll talk about the millions of dollars that Park Place will provide in public infrastructure, roads, trails, sidewalks, the tunnel and other improvements. They pay for that all up front. And so over 23 years in a business district, as people come in and use their services, people use the golf service or pickleball if they choose to have some, or rock climbing, on the receipt, they will charge an extra 5% as a tax. That amount will be collected locally by the finance department and then reimbursed to those developers for those costs. Now, those developers, when they build the roads and they build the sidewalks and trails, have to provide us a list of reimbursables, and we get those certified by our attorney, Terry Bruckert, and staff to make sure they are following kind of the legal, it's very tight state statute on what can be used for these funds. And so the proposal tonight is for a motion to codify and create this amusement tax under the City of O'Fallon Code of Ordinances. So with that, I know that's very abstract because we'll get into more detail a little bit later, but I'm happy to answer questions. But I do want to reiterate, passing this does not pass a tax on anybody else in the City of O'Fallon unless a company comes to us or a developer and says, I have to add this road, or I want to do a major expansion which requires much more. Essentially, can I start charging my own customers an additional tax to help reimburse us over that for 23 years? The City of O'Fallon does not front money. We will not front money tonight on Park Place or by any future motion made here on this project.
Thank you, Grant. Any questions from the committee? Jessica?
So just to reiterate, it's an optional tax if a business requests that they want that.
Correct.
And it can only be used for a very, very small pool of expenses that have to be, they're regulated by the state, approved by the attorney,
Correct.
and then we could reimburse it
Yes.
5 to 10 years after
We could.
they paid for
Yeah,
it. So it's not
absolutely.
going to anybody's bottom line, it's not helping them pay their employees more. Okay.
No, because in order for them to get their building permit, like we'll talk about later, a developer could be required to do $20, $30, $40 million in infrastructure work before ever being able, us giving them certification to move into a building. They'll pay that all up front. We'll collect those receipts, and over time, the city of O'Fallon will not take money from any other fund other than what is directly collected off of those properties. And so there are circumstances in the past, and we have 7 business districts in the city of O'Fallon, many of them do sales tax and hotel tax, that those upfront infrastructure costs the developers spend, they never recollect that entire amount. Now, we are always hopeful that they do because it means they've been doing a very good job. But there is the chance that they would not recoup all those costs.
Thanks, Grant. Anyone else have a question? Council? Public? All right. If not, I would ask for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Seconded.
Got a motion and a second. Can I get a roll call, Sandy?
Parchman?
Yes.
Lotz?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Boning?
Yes.
Blackburn?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Motion passes. We'll move to 3.1, 2024 tax levy update and abatement.
Okay, so this represents, so back at our November meeting when we had to decide, thank you, about our tax levy, there was a discussion of the amount that the city received back from the state due to their disabled vet reimbursement. We received at that time $272,000. Because of the fact we wanted to make sure that it did not affect what we're going to request later, we said hopefully by March we would know whether or not the state had approved for the next fiscal year in their state budget. The state did not put it in their budget. Therefore, this 5-year pilot program might have just been a 1-year pilot program. So what we decided to do going with this is we can abate. So we had talked about how to get it back into the taxpayers' hands because they're the ones, because of the disabled vets, with that exemption, the other 17% of our residents are paying that, so therefore that needs to be back to them. So we have looked at and discussed abating over time $50,000 a year until we get to the 272, so a little over, well, we'll do 5 years. But what we want to do is abate that amount back, and what is required per the county, when they give us the final extension, which just talked to Dina less than an hour ago, they do not have the final numbers. However, I did get updated EAV numbers, and so by abating the $50,000 for this year, it will change the amount of our tax rate, what we estimated. Again, I'm back into that. This is not the final rate, but it is, again, the final dollar amount. So we've abated $50,000, so the amount that we're looking at is $264,000. Based on the new EAV, we're looking at approximately a rate of 0.7241. When we presented this back in November, we were estimating a rate of 0.7486. So based on our 23 rate of 0.7738. So I know those are a lot of rate numbers, but basically it's good news. We're able to, give back approximately a savings of $41.42 for someone with a $250,000 home. So we continue to lower our property tax at this time. Next year we'll abate another $50,000 unless something comes through the state, but we will be abating this $50,000. The reason we don't want to do all $272,000 at one time, which would have a bigger effect on residents, is because then what happens is it throws us into a notice to do a public hearing because we have gone over our 5% because it's based on the dollar amount. So that is why we opted to do the $50,000 over the 5 years. So again, there's nothing required by council action. It is just something we will abate this $50,000, but I wanted to bring that up since we had talked about that in November, and we were not sure whether or not the state would approve in their budget, and unfortunately, they did not.
Thanks, Sandy. Any questions from the committee on this? Council? Jerry?
When are we going to hear about the final EAD?
I talked to Dina at 4 o'clock today. They said there were some issues with the assessors and the Board of Reviews. She will not start doing final extensions until the end of the week.
Well, they find that they did it long enough ago to get, to print their little cards to tell us our property taxes.
Correct, but she has to do the extensions. That card is different than the final extensions. But
All right. Anybody else on council? Public? All right. If not, that was just a discussion topic. Thanks for sharing that, Sandy, and thanks for going over that to make it transparent. 3.2, emergency purchase sewer line repair.
okay, so what we have on here is an emergency purchase during Friday's severe storm. There was a sewer trunk main break damaged by the Oak Hill School Road. They fixed it temporarily. However, they do need to do a more extensive repair, relocation, and replacement. Per our purchasing manual, we're allowed to move forward with an emergency repair, but at our next meeting, we need to notify council of this emergency request. So talked with Jeff Taylor. They estimate cost to be approximately $500,000. Last year, they had to replace a mile of the south trunk, which was about $1 million. So they're only doing 0.5 miles of the north truck. So it's going to be approximately $500,000. We do have that amount in the budget because they had a project, the Woodstream project, which they had in the budget, which they're not doing this year. So we do not need to do a budget amendment. However, we wanted to pass on, that there is no time to do a bid or anything like that, that this is an emergency purchase. So we just need to let everyone know.
All right. Any questions from the council or the committee?
And Jeff Taylor is available for
Yes.
more detail if you would like to hear it.
Jeff looks excited if you got a question.
I know that everybody wants to know. Well, you had the emergency repair that is going right now, right? So,
Yes, so a portion of the Engle Creek bank became eroded, exposed the line, had a separation of it. We were able to go out and temporarily put a repair in place. What we're looking at doing is moving the line further away from the creek. So we've already started the design of it, hope to have a preliminary design completed by the end of this week. And then the goal would be to start construction soon after. We've done this similarly in the past where we bring in a contractor will assist us. They'll bring in an excavator, a piece of equipment. We'll pair them up with some of our sewer personnel to install the line. So that is the plan. This was a segment that was just recently added to the CIP. It was the North Trunk Main Replacement Phase 1. So we already had plans to replace it. We're just having to do it a little bit sooner than expected.
Thanks for that, Jeff. Anybody on the council have a question or comment? Public? Jerry?
Where did the effluent go? In the creek?
Some of it did. So we had to report to the EPA. So all that paperwork's been submitted and sent to them.
Thanks for that, Jerry. Anybody from the public have a comment? All right, if not, that's just oh, we do? Vern, come on up.
Vern Ware, Ward 3. My question is, this is off of Old School Road?
Oak Hill School Road.
Oak Hill.
Out by Hageman Road.
Oak Hill School Road.
Is that down where the creek line is, where you got the manhole set out there and you got a dog leg around, is that where it's at?
Yeah, Oak
In
Hill
that
School.
flat area?
Yes, Oak Hill School Road
That's right,
is
Oak
off
Hill
of
School
Scott
Road.
Troy Road.
Okay, so that's down in that flat area where those manholes are. Okay,
Correct.
I just wanted to clarify, I didn't understand where it was at.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Any other public? All right, if not, that was a discussion topic. We can move on to 3.3, Treasurer's Report. Anything there you want to add?
Nope.
All right, any comments from anyone on that? All right, then 3.4, Administration Committee Reports, anything?
No, but I do have something else after this.
All right, before public comments, Sandy has something, so.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Something that came up after this got out was the push tax. So back in October of 2021, the council approved an ordinance approving a push tax. This push tax, we put it on hold because there were some lawsuits against Waukegan, some counties in Cook County, and Oak Lawn that the terminal operators were fighting against because they didn't want to have to collect this push tax. So the push tax is a penny for every push on a video gaming machine, right? So every time you push it, then the terminal operator is responsible for collecting a penny. It's on the person who's pushing. They're the ones who's paying the penny, but the terminal operator is responsible for it. We had put it on hold. IML, or Illinois Municipal League, suggested until everything was cleared up to put it on hold. But you had to have your ordinance passed prior to the November of 2021. So we passed it October of 2021, making it effective October or May of 2022. The lawsuit was still going on. So we just heard that on March 4th, the appellate court ruled in favor of Waukegan. So that the IML is now saying, you know, if you want to go forward with it, you know, they don't see any reason to further delay action to enforce the push tax as long as you have the ordinance in place. We have the ordinance in place. So we're now looking at the time back in October. During the committee, we said, you know, we were looking at another source of revenues. This was one that we talked about, and we said if it went forward, we would bring it back to council to talk about, you know, if that's something we want to get instituted. So this will be presented at my April meeting, April meeting. We'll talk more about the push tax, how it would work. We do not know what the revenue stream would even be because we don't know how many pushes it takes. So, but anyway, stay tuned. We just wanted to let you know that that is something now that will be looked at.
Thanks for that update, Sandy. And if there's nothing else from anybody, we'll have public comments, 4.1. So if you have any public comments concerning finance and administration, please step up to the mic and you have 5 minutes to speak. Nobody? Jerry?
It's not a public comment, it's a question about what you were just talking about. So the only thing we need to do, I mean, is establish the implementation date.
That is correct. But also decide, yes. I mean, back in October, it's already implemented. It's just now how to go forward.
All right. Any other public comments? Yep, Vern?
I know.
Burnware Ward 3. I didn't understand what they were talking about there. So you're saying that you already have it in the books to do it. So it's not going to be a retroactive thing, right? It's going to be a start date and you go forth from that.
That is correct.
Okay, that's what I wanted.
And there'll be more discussion
Okay.
at the April
I
meeting.
just was trying to understand that
Yep.
going on. Okay, thank you.
It cannot be retroactive.
All right, anyone else? All right, if not, look for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Next meeting will start at 6, which is in like 3 minutes.
5:57. Ooh, what did I say? 6:02, I think.
I knew you would make it in time.
Yeah. Let's see. Stop share.
You have fun up here.
Get out. Leave webinar. I'm out of here.
All right, so are Greg and Abby coming up here?
Greg is.
Okay, Greg will. So if Abby's coming up here, I move.
Oh, I don't think she's coming on.
Somebody change the sign.
Oh, yeah, ever since we moved in, but then we decided we didn't need it anymore. Jeff's got one, Nicole's got one, our grandkids each have one.
All righty, it's now 6 o'clock. I'll call this meeting of the Community Development Committee to order. Get a roll call, please.
Albrecht.
Here.
Parchman.
Here.
Campbell.
Here.
Vorse.
Here.
Small here. Roach.
I think Todd was going to try to be online, but I don't see him yet. Okay. So we have a quorum. We do. All right. So the next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the March 10th meeting. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes. We have a couple of items that we're just going to deal with right straight up front, and then we are going to go into the issues surrounding Park Place, and I assume that's the reason for the high attendance this evening. And what we will do is go through that. As we go through the slide presentation that Grant has, I'll be requesting questions and comments from the committee and from council. and we will hold off on public comment until we are through that entire process. The goal here is to allow everybody who is going to have to submit a vote on these items to fully understand the presentation from staff, and then the comments and questions from the constituents that are here who have come to speak on the issue. It won't be until we have comments from those who are here from the community that we will take a vote on the items that are to be considered and passed on to council. So with that, first item is an ordinance approving the final plat for the enclaves at Lawn Avenue for the second reading with no changes. Are there any comments or questions on that?
There's no changes.
Okay, hearing none. Move on to item 2.2, which is a resolution approving and accepting the minor subdivision of 804 St. Nicholas Drive, known as Lot 1 of Kurt's subdivision, on 6.26 acres on parcel number 04-200400-028. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay, it's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Greg, you want to talk to that subdivision?
Yes, sir, thank you. Per our Code of Ordinances, minor subdivisions are exempt from the procedures and the requirements for preliminary plats, and the subdivider can move straight forward to the final plat process. This has been reviewed by myself and Public Works Director Jeff Taylor, and the plat and resolution shall be recorded with the County Recorder of Deeds. Our petitioner is Mr. Nick Wojtal. He was not able to be here tonight. He is out of the country, and he is requesting approval for a proposed minor subdivision of 804 St. Nicholas Drive. The property is 6.26 acres, and it is east of Smiley Street along St. Nicholas. It is currently zoned SR1, single-family residential. The parcel currently has one single-family dwelling. He is proposing to divide it into two separate lots, 3.13 acres each. Upon approval of the minor subdivision, he is seeking to build a single-family dwelling on the western parcel of 3.13 acres. Water and sewer are both available by the city of O'Fallon. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments on this item from committee? From council?
This property, they're only building one more house on that, what they're doing?
Correct, yes. So the way that the property exists today, there is one single-family residential dwelling. They're going to divide that into two lots. The existing residential dwelling will be on the eastern lot. The western lot will not have any dwellings, and he's proposing to build one single-family dwelling on that property.
One road going into that property right now, will that be the only road that's going into that property?
He will be able to create his own driveway leading to that residential property upon subdivision.
Okay. Are there any additional questions from council or committee? Seeing and hearing none, have a motion?
So moved.
We've already motioned.
Oh, okay, thank you. Forgotten already. Okay, roll call, please.
Parchman?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Force?
Yes.
Albrecht?
Yep.
Okay, motion passes. Okay, Grant, would you go through the presentation on Park Place for us, please?
Yes, I will. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I see Alderman Roach did sign in. Kirk, can you hit, not the big X, but the second X? Right there, yeah. There you go. Okay. So I pared this down a few slides for tonight. Those who have already seen it, I apologize. It's going to be a lot of details again. So quick background. So again, going back to historically, so this project began in 2023. The city issued a request for proposals for city-owned land adjacent to the sports park. We had a couple proposals, but the one that the city council chose to investigate further was one led by Mr. Rich Goraz, who is here in attendance tonight, and Mr. Bruce Howland, and Michael Hamburg, who is not in attendance tonight. And so that included a golf-type entertainment concept, as well as some multifamily housing, single-family housing, and some retail. And so when we proposed that to the city council back in 2023, and I will paraphrase due to time tonight, but they instructed staff to kind of investigate this further, get this to a project where meets our master plan, that kind of meets the needs in helping the sports park. Because as a reminder, the sports park is an economic development hub we use. It collects 1.57 million visitors as of last year. 390, almost 400,000 of those were unique visitors. We have tournaments almost every week: baseball, softball, soccer, lacrosse. And so it's a growing need. We've seen our hotel occupancy and numbers grow in recent history in City of O'Fallon. We do have a 9% hotel motel tax that also funds a economic development fund that pays for the sports park and things like facade programs and the O'Fallon Station and the Vine Street Market. And so the sports park has become an economic hub. And so we received this proposal that helps to supplement and use that economic engine for further amenities, retail, and restaurants. It's something we've continued to explore. Visiting real quick to the original submission over 2 years ago. This was the one provided, so it included about 125,000 square feet of commercial space, and there was a much larger multifamily component of 720 apartments and 114 townhomes included, as well as a little bit larger hotel at 125 rooms, and then the golf entertainment complex. Following this kind of initial presentation, we met with the development group and shared with them the thoughts of the city council that they prioritize green space. They would like to see a little bit more pared down on the multifamily, a little less intense on the commercial, and they really like the buffering of the single family on the north side. And so about a year later, they came back with this. Again, they pared down the apartments and townhomes a little bit, put some more green space in it, and then finally, just a couple months ago in December, October, November timeframe, they provided the City of O'Fallon with their official submittal with this. And so this proposal that is presented tonight, while it is still in draft form and it has came a long way since the first proposal, and I would imagine that there's still going to be some changes going through the process, even up to construction if approved. Does include around 60 lots, mainly for single-family and two-family units on the north side, built by State Construction and Mr. Richie Goraz. It includes a commercial component that includes some entertainment-based retail and restaurants. It includes some multifamily housing with some breezeway apartments, townhomes, and a central corridor area. The central corridor apartment, which will include the leasing office and the indoor pool and weight room and stuff like that. And it also includes the golf entertainment complex. I'll have some slides later because many people are calling this a Topgolf. It is much smaller than a Topgolf. The model it is coming after is one in St. Louis. I was able to find some comparisons and provide later in the presentation. So this is the site plan we have working with today. And this is the development boundary, which is to the west, northwest of the O'Fallon Family Sports Park, bordered by Veneta, Porter, and Simmons. To the north is Parks of Arbor Green Residential Subdivision, and to the south is the Ameren Substation and Park Bridge Station. To the west is undeveloped farmland owned by mostly of the Muni family in unincorporated St. Clair County. So the first action item tonight to be discussed is the future land use map amendment. So I just want to give some background on what the future land use map is and how we amend it and why. So the future land use map shows recommended configurations of future uses in O'Fallon, given current characteristics and anticipated future development potential. The map is a guide for staff and for the city council on preferred distribution of residential densities and their relationship to the other non-residential uses. The categories show how vacant or inappropriately developed land may be best utilized or redeveloped so O'Fallon is able to meet future development goals. And the decision to locate new uses and activities in the city of O'Fallon is based upon factors such as impact on existing development, capacity of adjacent streets, planning and design principles, and the need for compatibility between built and natural environment. And so the future land use map is crafted through the 2040 master plan process, which happened 3 years ago. And so the engagement themes of that master plan continue today of parks and open space are highly valued, that residents want more opportunities to walk and bike safely, and both for recreation and to get to key destinations. The downtown, of course, is a popular destination and recognized as the heart of the community. It is important to have housing available for all stages of life in O'Fallon, including housing that is largely missing now for younger people starting out or seniors ready to downsize. And more dining and entertainment options are desired so residents can stay in O'Fallon and meet those needs. Lastly, schools are O'Fallon's greatest strength and the reason many choose to live in O'Fallon. So getting back to the future land use map, detailed above, and so I've circled in a sports park in the area, but you'll see these red nodes that are called neighborhood commercial nodes and regional commercial nodes, and they're stationed around major intersections and areas with amenities to provide some of those key engagement themes in the future. And so zooming in a little bit further, you'll see around the sports park, there is a gray area outlined, zoned in the future land use map as neighborhood district, which includes what is proposed tonight. To make it easier to see, we zoomed in for the area specific for the Park Place development, and you will see today that the mixed-use neighborhood district future land use map is adjacent to this O'Fallon Family Sports Park, and the areas in unincorporated St. Clair County included in this development are zoned, are future land use map potential for low-density residential. So the proposal we'll have tonight from staff to this committee and then future city council would be to amend this future land use map to extend that mixed-use neighborhood district on the land that's positioned to be multifamily or commercial in the Golf Entertainment Complex, and replace the mixed-use neighborhood district on the north side immediately adjacent to the single-family housing on Parks of Arbor Green with a low-density residential, so future platting and maps can reflect that and have that congruency with the Parks of Arbor Green. So the background behind the future land use map and these amendments, when these original proposals came in, we felt important for staff, to have the development portray the more intense and heavier uses of the multifamily housing and the commercial further away from existing residential stock. And so the development has done this successfully by creating the missing middle, which goes from low-density single-family housing, then the low-density villas, two-family villas, crossing a major road into the commercial and multifamily area that does include a more dense housing stock. And so that concept that's included in our future land use map is called the missing middle. So finally, the first action item tonight, and these will all be voted on later in a list, but we'll stop and pause for questions, is the current proposal to develop the mixed-use zoning SR1B, which is single-family residential, MR1, the two-family residential, and the B1 Community Business District to amend the future land use map of the 2040 Master Plan. This amendment will require changing lots 1 through 19 to SR1B residential located on the northeast portion of the development from neighborhood district to low-density residential. The remainder of the development, lots 20 through 60, MR1, and commercially zoned lots B1 will require change from low-density residential and neighborhood district to solely neighborhood district. So to sum it up, and I'll go back real quick, what we're asking for the motion is to change from this, with all the area being mixed-use neighborhood district in the front, to moving the mixed-use neighborhood district further to the south and to the west, and on the north side, making it low-density residential. I'll take a break for questions.
Okay. Are there questions from the committee? So what you did was increase the area between Park Green. and
Parks Park Green.
And move the rest of it a little further south.
Correct. We moved the neighborhood district south, away from the existing residential stock of Parks Harbor Green, onto the actual development site, the entirety of the development site, and then buffered Parks Harbor Green with single-family, low-density residential, which will be built upon with the single-family villas.
Okay, thank you. Are there questions from council? Okay. Thank you. Let's move on.
Okay, so the next item would be the pre-annexation agreement and annexation ordinance. So any property that is unincorporated St. Clair County is deemed agricultural use in their zoning propriety. And so when those areas are annexed into the city or we receive a petition for annexation, the first thing we do is negotiate a pre-annexation agreement. So that's an agreement between the city and the landowner on the terms in which they enter the city. And so there's a few things we have in there. One is annexation fees, which are used, it's $2,250 per residential unit that's built. And those are used for creating roadways, extending infrastructure, things that the newly annexed property needs to be built on and developed, but the existing residents of O'Fallon shouldn't have to pay for. That is the theory behind it. The other thing in there is also a parkland dedication. So we have a calculation in our code of ordinances that so many acreage or so many people need a ratio of parkland in the city of O'Fallon. And so developers have a couple of options on how to satisfy this. One, they can create parks in their subdivisions. A lot of times the Parks Department and city administration doesn't prefer that because small pocket parks are very difficult to maintain. And they kind of seem to get a lot of wear and tear. And so the other thing is a fee in lieu of parkland dedication. And so that amount is $507.06 per residential unit. And so what the annexation agreement includes is that calculation based upon the number of units that are going to be built. So that amount, 2,250 times the number of residential units, comes out to be $1,192,500. The parkland dedication is about $250,000 that they'd be required to pay when they annex into the city of O'Fallon. Now, there are some things that the city is requiring them to do, like with the pedestrian tunnel and the trails and making those connections, and the parkland they're willing to build within their site, that the city of O'Fallon is recommending to credit those fees back to the developer, at which time they pull a building permit. So when they come in, they propose a building permit with our community development department. They'll come in, they'll pay a fee for inspections, annexation fees, and parkland dedication. And at that time, it would be credited back to them for funds they have already spent. And so when we had this discussion with the amusement tax, they'll build everything out in the beginning. We'll collect all those reimbursables and receipts. And then that fee, $2,250 per unit, will be credited back to them, so they won't pay that on their building permit since they've already spent that money up front. So that's the pre-annexation agreement. And why I have both these, that is a resolution, and the actual annexation ordinance would be an ordinance. So if this moves forward, you'll see those kind of on different time frames, but all approving on the final reading.
Okay.
So with that, I'll take another break and pause.
Are there questions from committee?
I did fail to mention that the pre-annexation, the annexation ordinance only covers approximately 80 acres, not the entire 105 acres that's already annexed. The 25 acres is already annexed in the city of O'Fallon.
Right. Question from committee? From council? Okay, everyone clear? Yes, sir.
Just real quick, this has been done before. This isn't something new, accrediting back.
Absolutely. So we, first off, every property that does an annexation, we have a pre-annexation agreement. Those agreements are good for 20 years. So typically when private residences that have a well dry up or their sewer fails, they'll come and ask us for utilities. Our code requires a pre-annexation agreement, even if we're not contiguous to that property. And so from time to time with the city council, you'll see us come back and annex by ordinance a property that we've had a pre-annexation agreement with for up to 20 years. That's how long they are. But yes, doing these credits is very common, especially with subdivisions and large developments, because the infrastructure is expensive, and we would like to see our trails be built out not at the city's dime, more done at the development time so they can get in and grade it and do it right. But we've done one with Reserves of Timber Ridge for a future bike trail. It's actually getting pretty close to ending construction now if you drive up Bethel Road. And so yes, we do this quite a bit, mostly with trails and improvements, road improvements, secondary entrances and the like.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Okay. This is the short part now. Get into the zoning, the plan use, and the preliminary plat of Park Place. And so just as a kind of introduction, the vision of the city into zoning districts is based on the principle that similar conditions should prevail throughout a particular district. Some uses of land are appropriate neither as permitted uses nor as special uses in certain districts and are therefore designated as plan uses, which will be proposed tonight. These plan uses are in a subchapter that require certain circumstances, and these come in front of the city council where we get to ask more of the details because there is not an inherent, so SR1 zoning, if you meet all the codes and you can build a single family house, you don't have to come in front of the city council, it's already improved in it. We do a lot of these plan uses so that we can look at conditions of operation such as drive-throughs, alcohol sales, operating hours, and other impacts on existing residents. So to back out once again, here is the project area site next to the O'Fallon's Family Sports Park. As mentioned earlier, Parks of Arbor Green, the Ameren Substation, Park Bridge Station, Firehouse 4, and some unincorporated county property surrounds the area. This is the site plan that has already been shown, but I do want to point out that the points of access on this are substantial in the road improvements. We will talk about traffic impact and traffic studies later, but they will be building a lighted and signalized intersection at the O'Fallon Family Sports Park Road, right next to the Lot G, the Golf Entertainment Complex. That road will travel to the west and up through the site. And then they will also be straightening a Veneta at the corner of the sports park, installing a new roundabout, and extending Porter Road to the west to an eventual stub where right-of-way will be deeded for long-term expansion heading west to the Old Collinsville Road or Merriam Parkway area. Again, this extension could be 20 years, it could be 90 years, but as we let projects be built, we do require right-of-way for future extension. From the original site plan, that roundabout did extend directly north right into Beaconsfield and into the Parks of Arbor Green subdivision. After a few open houses, this was apparent that this was the #1 kind of point of conflict for the Parks of Arbor Green subdivision. And so we went back to developers and requested / required them to relook at the plan and come up with a secondary entrance that differed. And so you'll see the new secondary entrance on the southwest side of those 2 family villas coming off the future extension of Porter. Lastly, if you go to the east of the newly built roundabout, it connects with the existing roundabout at Porter and Simmons. Traveling north, there will be a new road that will be right in, right out only on Simmons for access to those villas. So for the site plan, it's currently farmland, zoned agriculture in unincorporated St. Clair County. It is all 88.66 acres are owned by Richie Goraz of State Construction. The other 24.99 approx acres are owned by the City of O'Fallon and are under contract to purchase pending future zoning approval. If zoning approval is not provided by the City Council, that contract does not go through. And so as we go through the site plan, the lots 1 through 19 are single-family villas with square footage of each lot are over 10,000 feet per city code. These will all be one-family units. Lots 20 through 60 are 2-family villas, square footage over 10,000 square feet per lot. I will put a footnote in here that what you're seeing today has actually been changed a little bit. We received a new drawing of these lots on Friday at the instances of the open houses and a resident of the nearby north property line. And Jeff and I and a few others walked out there and reported back to the developers and the engineering team that we wanted them to look at the existing drainage way and the tree canopies. And so the new drawing, while not reflected here, does pull those lots further to the south to stay out of that drainage area and that kind of fall-off ravine. Lot D includes a restaurant with a square footage lot of 114,000 square feet. Lot E is undeveloped parkland that will be deeded to the City of O'Fallon, square footage 260,000 feet. The City of O'Fallon does not have any plans at this time on what would go there other than a passive park. The initial thought of potential soccer fields or other ball fields was not ideal since it's not conducive to soccer field size and parking on it and just kind of traffic that would be generated. And also doesn't allow the soccer fields to be built north to south. And we don't prefer to build east to west due to the sun. Lot G includes the commercial area, which will have retail, restaurants, an office, and a hotel, and the square footage of that parcel, or that lot, would be 578,000 square feet. Lot J includes the apartments and townhomes with a square footage of 619,000 square feet. Lot I is the golf entertainment complex with a square footage of 1,053,000 feet. And lastly, lots A, B, C, H, and K will include drainage and landscape buffering. All these square footages that are shown in this slide are not the square footage of the building footprints, but simply the square footage of the lot size. Okay, so Park Place lots 1 through 19 include the single-family villas to be proposed by State Construction. They are proposed to be zoned SR1 single-family residential with side access provided by Simmons Road to the west, Beaconsfield to the north, and Porter Road to the southwest. The entrance and exit to Simmons Road will be right in, right out only. They do meet code for setbacks and max lot coverage, and they do meet required spaces based on number of units of 38 parking spaces. And I will introduce Mr. Richie Goras from State Construction, who is here today. And he can answer questions a little bit later, but he will be the builder of these lots. So the site design is such. You'll see an area for required buffering. I will hold on to that comment until we get to that precise lot. But all these will abut directly to the other single-family houses in Parks Fiber Green, since there is no transition of zoning, and then be serviced by that roadway to the south. Again, you'll see that direct connection from the roundabout to Beaconsfield was disconnected. Moving on to lots 20 through 60, these are the two-family villas. And so these will be proposed to be zoned MR1, multifamily residential. I do want to make a note that two-family villas are permitted under SR1 zoning by a special use. However, given it being so close to Parks Harbor Green and with the rest of the project, staff did choose to zone this MR1 for that additional buffering requirement. So site access is provided by Simmons Road to the west, Beaconsfield to the north, and Porter Road to the southwest. The entrance and exit to Simmons Road will be right in, right out only, just like the last 19 lots. So it does meet code for setbacks. However, with the new changes of moving them further out of that drainage area, there will be a variance proposed later by staff to allow max lot coverage in excess of the normal 30% by code, but not exceeding 40%. And finally, the required spaces based on number of units of 80 parking spots meets code. This is the site design, and as mentioned, between zoning transitions of MR1 and SR1, there is a required buffering. I did make note that while not shown, these lots are adjusted south to create additional buffering between that drainage way, the tree canopy, and the newly built villas. Okay, before I move into the commercial, do we want to stop for questions?
Are there questions from the committee?
I just have a comment. I walked that with Grant, and it did look like it was going to be a little further after standing in some of the residents at Parks Harbor Green, so y'all moving that back out and kind of out of that drainage way. I think the residents will be very happy with that, so I just want to say thank you for making that adjustment, and I think that was a great change, so thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Parchman. And I will also relay that the residents have been great. We understand that this has changed, and it can be, this is a large development, but they were very happy and nice to walk us back there and show us what they were trying to explain to us. And the development team, when we reached out to them, were quick to react and had, no grumbles, so.
Questions or comments from council? Yes, sir.
I do. Go back to the slide that showed the buffers that you put in and the landscaping, that slide there.
I'm not sure which one you mean.
What I'm really saying is, you did a great job on the 1 through 19, the buffers, and the same for the 2060 buffers on the back side of that, towards the creek. But down at by the golf range, there's no kind of buffers. You
Sure.
decided,
Well, we'll get into that, if you don't mind, when we get to that lot. We can discuss that buffering.
okay,
Is that fine?
Okay. Any other comments or questions from council? Okay, seeing none, let's proceed on. Great,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on to more of the commercial use. So this is Lot D of the Park Place. So this is proposed to be Zone B1P, so plan use. Site access provided by Porter Road to the east and south, and then the entrance exit through 2 routes on the newly constructed roundabout. This proposed development does meet code for setbacks and max lot coverage, and does meet code for required parking spots of 110 parking spaces. So this particular building is being built for a higher-end restaurant with full sit-down service. Here is the site design, and again, as mentioned and preferred by the developer, that additional required buffering, because there is residential properties to the north and to the west, so there'll be per code required buffering of both natural and built buffering in these areas. Okay, moving on to Lot E. Lot E is the parkland that will be dedicated to the city of O'Fallon. There is no proposed rezoning. It will stay ag as incorporated or coming through the St. Clair County. And because we don't have plans to build on it at this time, initial conversations have been a passive park with potentially a walking trail or a story trail through the library, but not heavily used soccer fields or baseball fields. The site access provided by Porter Road to the south, and entrance and exit through the newly constructed roundabout. And again, no current plans, so no rezoning and no setback concerns or parking. Here is the Lot E site design on the preliminary plat. Okay, Lot G is the mainly commercial component of this development. So it is proposed to be zoned B1, so commercial use planned. Site access provided by Porter Road to the north and a newly constructed internal road to the west connected to Bonita Road via a newly built lighted intersection. It will have 4 points of access and meets codes for setbacks and max lot coverage. It does require required spaces based upon the number of units through an alternative parking plan of 463 spaces. However, the developer is proposing at this time 644 spots, but through the construction process and review process, we do believe there will be some parking spaces having to be removed due to dumpster enclosures, fire truck turnaround radiuses, and so we are putting in the variance proposal approval of the alternative parking plan, but they would not be allowed to reduce under the 644 currently shown on the plan unless it's at the city's requirement through those conditions on turning radiuses and dumpster enclosures. They cannot simply lower their parking count to increase square footage of their building. So to go to the specifics through that lot, the site design, there is building C2, which is on the northwest portion of 10,800 square feet. Building C3 is 14,000 square feet in the north center part of the development, and Building C4, which is on the northeast portion of that development at 40,000 square feet. So all 3 of these buildings are designed and proposed for retail and entertainment based. So there'll be restaurants, coffee shops, some apparel shops, and things that cater to the O'Fallon Family Sports Park and people traveling back and forth. Building C5 is 18,000 square feet on the southwest portion. Building C6 is 36,000 on the southern central part. And lastly, Building H is a 100-key hotel. So I will mention that Building C5, due to its 36,000 square feet, that is because it's 2 stories. The first story will be the retail restaurant base, and the second floor will be offices. Total square footage of all these commercial buildings will be 118,800 feet, and the allowable uses under the mixed neighborhood district in B1P are uses such as cafes, coffee shops, offices, corner markets, retail shops, salons, restaurants, and entertainment use. This will not allow regional commercial and big box stores. 1, because of the parking requirements. 2, if you were to put a big box store with a huge draw on a quick turnover, it would really impact traffic much more than it can handle on those intersections. So they will not be able to come back in the future and propose a Sam's Club or Costco or things like that. As much as we all want a Trader Joe's in town, we would still probably get really nervous about that one. So we discussed the alternative parking plan. So there are 3 ways to meet parking in our code of ordinances. The first is an equation in our code that requires so many spaces per use per 1,000 square feet. And so using that easy equation, it would tell us that this requires a minimum of 1,005 spaces for that lot. However, we have seen in the past that this equation for mixed-use development and shared parking lots does not meet that criteria. It turns into parking lots like at home, down on Central Park, that have 560 or 600 spots due to square footage, but many times only have 50 or 60 cars in the parking lot. So the other way to meet parking code is by the precise use and the hours of operation. And so those have to be accommodated through the International Traffic Engineers study, pro formas, that look at the individual uses of the land, of the buildings, and then operation hours. And so these are proposed both on Lot G and Lot J, looking at all the studies for the uses. And I'll be happy to share them with these afterwards, but they looked into the uses and the operation hours of all these, and came up with an equation that for this demand of this through the International Traffic Engineers for Lot G would be 463 minimum parking spaces. Again, I mentioned in their preliminary plan, they have 644 drawn. Now, in the next phases, as approved, some of those will be reduced due to turning radiuses and dumpster enclosures, but we are putting condition on this variance, allowing them the alternative parking plan with a minimum of 463. However, they may not reduce under 644 as illustrated unless it's by the issuance of the City of O'Fallon. We want to pause for questions about that one?
Are there questions or comments on this section from committee? Okay, from council?
Rewind it just a little bit. What you guys are talking about moving south, how much does that affect the rest of the development?
Moving the residential properties south. So it didn't. What it did was, I mentioned earlier, there's a variance on the lot size on some of those MR2 spaces or MR1 spaces. So they had to essentially shrink some of in the middle of that turnaround radius. I'll show you.
It didn't affect anything.
It did not.
That's what.
Okay. It did not shift everything. It shifted just the residential component a little bit, kind of squeezed it in the middle.
Question, when we talk about having a buffer, are we talking about a berm with vegetation? Or?
Yeah, so there's a number of options. Mainly, it's a berm with vegetation.
Okay.
In the landscape proposals, through the process, we look at that. And obviously, we'll look at grading and drainage. We don't want to put a berm or retaining walls in the middle of a drainage area, and so that's what we look at.
Okay.
Many times it's a berm, many times it's a 6-foot vinyl fence with some vegetation, but our code is explicit on what type of vegetation and how many square foot in between.
Okay, good, thank you. Any other questions or comments from committee or council? Okay, let's proceed on.
Okay, Park Place Lot J. This is the multifamily component. So this again is to be proposed zone B1P commercial. Site access provided by Porter Road to the north, a newly constructed internal road to the east and connected to Veneta Road through that newly built lighted intersection. It does have 4 points of access and meets codes for setbacks. There is a variance requested allowing 78% gross floor coverage, while the code requires a maximum of 75% coverage. And that is particularly on with the grading issues on the townhomes, having to fill those lots a little bit more because in the grading plan, it does drop off significantly heading towards Ogles Creek. And the required spaces based on the number of units, again, there's an equation in our code of the alternative parking plan is 607 spaces minimum, while they are providing 726, again, before elimination due to the city's design standards. So buildings MF1, 2, and 3 on the north side of this lot are all of the Breezeway constructions, similar to 301 Hartman in Shiloh. Building MF4 is a central corridor apartment that will include the pool, the amenities such as a leasing office and the exercise area. And then the townhomes are on the western end of 6 of those. Particular to this area, the unit count, so this is mainly going to be catered towards young professionals, those who are downsizing, those who maybe are in, looking for some place to live while they're either stationed in a Scott or around O'Fallon, maybe they're a nurse or a doctor. And so because of that, they're building these unit counts of 66 studio, so 1-bedroom apartments, 267 full 1-bedroom apartments, 100 2-bedroom apartments, 9 3-bedrooms, and 28 townhomes. And so they're really catered over that smaller bedroom count. That MF4 would mention leasing pool, exercise area, and other amenities. Speaking to developers, this would probably be the first one to be built since it will include the amenities in the leasing office out of those. And then one condition that we put in all of our multifamily housing when they share amenities is that they are required to be maintained under one single ownership due to those shared amenities and upkeep on all of them. So going into alternative parking plan, again, the city's code calculation says that you need 2 spaces per 1 unit, and that would require 940 parking stalls for this lot. The plan use process, again, allows development to propose an alternative parking plan, given that they look at the IT parking generation, and that, again, I'm not gonna go into a lot of detail on this, you're happy to share it with you guys, but the ITE parking plan would be 470 parking spaces required as a minimum. They have illustrated, I'm sorry, let me repeat that. There are 470 units, bedroom units. That would demand 670 parking spaces for this lot. They are currently showing 726 on the plans. And so we would only allow them to go under the 726 again if it's at our issuance. So our turning radiuses, our dumpster enclosures and such. They cannot reduce under 726 to build more buildings or to build more units. Okay, moving on to Lot I, the Golf Entertainment Complex. Also to be zoned, proposed B1P. Side access provided by Porter Road to the north and a newly constructed internal road also to the north connected to Veneta Road via the newly built lighted intersection. This does meet code for setbacks and max lot coverage, and it does meet code on parking spaces required where they have a minimum requirement of 170 and they provide 175. So there were a lot of talk about Topgolf and how large this improvement was going to be. So I did reach out to a developer and a couple of people in St. Louis, and I have personally visited this one, Tower T, which is built in kind of southern St. Louis. And so this is what their model is. It's not Topgolf. Topgolf usually has anywhere from 100 to 300 golf bays in their construction. Tower T is much smaller. It's included what this will be closer to the 50 bay build out. Full scale restaurant, indoor, outdoor golf, maybe a small putt-putt area. But again, you see in that bottom left picture that Tower T sits directly in the middle of a residential neighborhood. It's not a Topgolf that requires, interstate frontage. It is more of a entertainment base built upon the areas around it. So we'll pause after this for Alderman Carney's question, but the Lot I site design, again, with the transition, normally this would not require a buffer on that southwest side, given the riparian area between Park Bridge Station and the lot. But through the public open houses, and again, the developer's been great to work with, the approval process will require them to build an additional buffer on that southwest side, basically between the riparian area or the draw with the trees and the netting from the golf complex. The reason why it doesn't show specifically what those plantings or design is now, because the developer still has to move the utility poles that are currently overhead transmission lines. And so we don't want them to plant trees underneath power lines that are still being designed. But through the construction process with these approvals and requirements, that will be assured.
Thank you. Are there comments or questions from the committee? Yes.
The poles that will provide, that will, for the fencing to keep the golf balls out of the local neighborhood, what are you gonna, some of the top golf stuff is really ugly. I mean, if you put a wooden pole up there and, it's better looking than that.
If you could please come up to the mic.
Pat DeSico. We haven't looked at the poles yet. I mean, that will be in the construction phase. But it's going to look, something similar to Tower T in their poles.
Metal poles, wooden poles?
I don't know at this time. We haven't even talked about that with the construction company.
Okay. Other questions or comments? Council? Yes.
So that required buffer right there, that's new since the planning commission?
No, that was included in the Planning Commission as well.
Okay.
I think the Planning Commission, there was questions from the public about the fence. Why is there a fence required on the north side next to Parks Farber Green and not here? So the riparian area is 300 feet on drainage areas that people are not, it's in our code, you are not allowed to build in it. It is free of obstructions. And so we can't allow anyone or ourselves to build a buffer in that area. And the other thing, there's a couple hundred feet. I mean, if the riparian area is 300 feet, then 100 feet on either side, you're talking about 500 feet between potentially the lot line and the closest house. A 6-foot vinyl fence, which would normally be a fence height, would do nothing. So we're looking at additional buffering of evergreen trees variety, something that will take root. Of course, they're not going to be 100 feet tall year one, but we will require that additional natural buffering.
Since we're on the sound topic, so the gradient of the land is downward, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so from what I'm seeing in the pictures of the top tier, I looked around today, they have a roof slant upward, that goes down. So that's naturally creating a horn. So any of that sound is going to be amplified just naturally. So is there going to be a sound system up under the roof? What?
Yeah, so there's a couple slides on sound impact a little bit later, but so the construction of these, in our research, they put sound dampers on those roofs, additionally on the sides, so that sound cone does not bleed out to the sides. And so I'll show you that sound cone, what it looks like in a little bit. And so they do things to mitigate the sound.
So sound damper on the roof on the inside of the facility. Okay, so additionally, there is, okay, so this is the horn. They have the natural tree line, and we don't know what it's going to be yet, the additional, maybe never. I have a problem, the natural buffer now is very sparse. So I don't see what that really is going to do as a buffer.
I would recommend, if the council doesn't feel comfortable with the buffer that they place an additional condition on the proposal. I don't think that, you know, you need a very significant vinyl fence that I don't know one that could be constructed in that way, but I was going to talk about a little later with sound code and a case study. There is a potential that the council could put some type of condition on this to have a audio study, and if the decibel level exceeds what we believe, then we can go back and do more buffering.
Okay, so, and that's where I was putting the sound cone, like, were those numbers, like, just, like, average, what the expected sound would
Yes.
be? Okay, because at the tee-off, that's like, says siren, but depending on how it's read and what levels, it could be as loud as a rock concert. So, like, I'm just having a hard time piecing together how those buffers are really gonna do anything if that's what the expected sound level.
Yeah, sure. So let's pause 1 second. I'll get right to that. It's in a few slides. But so just to circle back around, this is what the overall site preliminary plat will look like as introduced in the previous slides. And then some aerial imagery. And I will note that it's a boulevard construction that at the end of this picture, there is an underground pedestrian tunnel they will be building that will connect the site with the O'Fallon Family Sports Park and the existing trail structure of the sports park. Here's a view from that plaza area in front of the pedestrian tunnel that will lead out into the proposed Park Place development. Okay, and again, we'll get to audio. I think it's in a few slides, but public utilities, as provided always in zoning and annexation. This area will be provided sewer by Caseyville Township Sewer District. They have provided us with a letter of service from Caseyville for the sewer. City of O'Fallon currently owns and operates a 16-inch water main that will provide water service to the area. Actual water main sizes, fire hydrant locations, and valves will be engineered prior to a building permit. And then drainage, all developments in the City of O'Fallon are required to provide stormwater detention to reduce the impact and additional impervious area created by the development. Stormwater will be accommodated by construction of 4 detention ponds. These detention ponds are located in outlots A, C, K, and I. And stormwater will be collected through a series of drainage inlets within the development, conveyed through a storm sewer system at the detention ponds, and the system will discharge into Ogles Creek that drains north along the western limits of the property. Actual detention pond sizes, grading, pipe sizes, and inlets will be engineered prior to building permit issued. And if anybody has any questions about utilities or drainage, Jeff Taylor has joined us up here. Okay, so these are the next few slides are kind of some of the input and concerns we've heard. Hopefully they answer a lot of them. So one we've heard a lot in the public open houses are elevations and eyesight, the height of the development. And so as you will see in a lot of the development, we did have them push the larger buildings further west and south. We did that because the natural topography of the land falls off from Veneta Road down to the creek. And so what they will do is they will go in and they will tier this thing, this whole site with retaining walls and drainage, so it all falls from the high point at Veneta or near Beaconsfield Lane down to the creek. And so the top picture shows that the largest of the built buildings, the 5-story apartment building, the top of the apartment will actually be lower than the tree canopy next to the single-family houses on the northeast side. Additionally, the townhomes at the very far end are pushed down further. The low point would be that creek down. So,
What's the elevation difference between Veneta Drive and Ogle Creek?
Veneta Drive is about 585 feet above sea level. Ogle Creek, the low point's about 520.
Okay.
So the footprint of the large 5-story apartment building is about 30 to 40 feet lower than the elevation of Veneta Road. So when you're looking just straight across the horizon, you'll only see the top floor or two.
Okay. Okay. Other questions or comments from committee? Council?
You want to go back, Gus?
Yeah, I got sound if we want to talk about it now. Okay, so lighting and sound. So with lighting, so city code prohibits light pollution traveling over property lines. And so what we do there is when construction plans come in, they have what's called a photometric plan. It's a large sheet. It looks the same as any building plan or utilities, and they have the candle wattage on every single light standard that they're there to install. And that has to show that the light does not pollute over the property line. And so that's something we approve. If the plans don't show that, we fail them and we send them back for redesign. And so the lighting is a component we get through the construction plans if approved and move forward. The sound, I know, is a big concern for the golf entertainment complex. And so this map was shown in Planning Commission in the open house. I was asked by one of our council members and some of the public to zoom it out to show more of Park Bridge Station. And so as mentioned, how these facilities are built, they're not built so you're just sitting on the top of a hill hitting golf balls. You're in a bay that has concrete buildings on both sides. And so the sound does come out in a cone and travels into the driving range area. Now, the sound range, and because I had to pull this out, you can see that this is a little skewed, but so it shows if you're standing right in front of where people are hitting balls, yes, it will be loud. But the sound of the golf balls quickly dissipate over the yardage. And so by the time you're getting even to the back half end of the driving range, you're down to 50 to 40 decibels, which is, according to the experts of audiology, is between a light rainfall and whispering. Now, I will caveat that is in natural conditions with no buffering and no other sound components. And so what that doesn't take into effect are the existing trees that are there, any ambient sounds from cars or kids, or as much as I was ridiculed for it by Jeff, the netting will have a play into blocking that sound a little bit. But mainly it's that tree buffering, and with additional tree canopies and buffering required through the zoning process, we have no concerns over the sound being of a high level into that area. We did see a case study. We did get a case study out of Louisville, Kentucky. And so they did build a full stage Topgolf. It had about 175 bays. It was a major construction of their flagship Topgolf, and it was next door to some residential properties. And so this was approved. The engineers did a sound study before using other case studies, and they estimated that the sound traveling from Topgolf to the neighborhood properties, which is about the same distance from what this one is proposed to the neighboring properties, would be between 50 and 55 decibels. They went out after construction and tested it because there was a lawsuit in place. They tested it again and they confirmed that that sound level was under 55 decibels. And so the estimates from our sound cone were confirmed in this case study from Louisville, Kentucky. Now, I do understand the concern about sound and lighting. Again, that is why staff put the condition of the additional natural buffering in that component.
Okay, we still don't know what kind of posts we're gonna put in. Netting, I know there's a soundproof netting, or netting that's buffers more than what the average place does. Could we ask them to look into that, putting that type of netting up
Yeah.
there? To eliminate-
Certainly. So the netting will have to be smaller than a golf ball to not let it through. So it'll be rather thick netting, has to stay in all weather. If the council feels strongly enough, they can put a condition that a sound analysis be performed through the construction and post-construction phase. And if the decibels have found to increase substantially, then additional buffering is required.
Okay, the only reason I'm saying this is, this one you're showing us there, that looks like that's flat ground. Okay, what we're putting in is going downhill. That sound is gonna travel that way. So that's why I'm saying, let's do some studies on that.
And I also feel like there's a lot of variables that's going to impact the sound as far as heat, humidity, sound system. There's just a lot of unknown variables. So, and just seeing, we have very nice days, like just the last nothing, I mean, that natural buffer, and it's gotten thinner with the last storm, with the trees getting knocked down. I just don't think it's adequate, and especially since there are gonna be the outdoor areas plus the pickleball. And the map that shows the rest of the neighborhood, I mean, it shows it, but until you're there looking, it's a lot closer than that map shows. So I would like to see some kind of additional concessions made. I mean, we made some changes up north. I'd like to see something for the neighbors down south.
That's Rush. So it's a statement, but it's really a question. I'm not a golfer, but I go like once or twice a year. And you're talking 500 feet from the tee boxes to the resident.
No, over 500 yards.
Oh, 500 yards. Okay, that's what I meant, I'm sorry. So,
Yeah.
on a normal 18-hole course, there's one or two, maybe three 500-yard holes. And if I'm on the green, and again, I'm not a regular golfer, but if I'm on the green on a 500-yard hole, I don't even hear, and I get there's other variables. I get downhill, I get the cone, but I don't even hear somebody teeing off of a 500-yard tee box when I'm on the green.
Yeah.
So I guess the question is, well, we kind of answered the question.
Well, let me correct what I said. So the parcel west to east is 500 yards. If you can see the sound cone, so the end of that green cone is 200 and, I'm sorry, I had to make this picture bigger, so it's a little blurry. I think it's 275 yards to that end of that green cone.
And how many
Right there.
yards from the end of the green cone to the, it's pretty close.
Yeah.
Okay, so just under 300 yards.
It's 100, the green cone's 100 yards long.
I think the teeing off, and that is the lower end of the spectrum. Is there music, the yelling, the hollering, the cheering? That's the sound issue, not, I mean, just the little tink. I mean, yes, it is an issue, but it's the rest of it that comes with it. You know, we went to the one in downtown this weekend just to see what it was like. There's party buses. Like, this is gonna draw people. You know, yes, it's only half the size, but it's how much busier is it going to be, you know, consistently?
And I understand Ross's point where he's saying he doesn't hear that one driver. We're not talking about one person up there hitting that ball. We're talking about 50.
Times how many people per day.
But I think that this is really you said,
Because I would like to read that study. Like, we never received that. I'd like to read it.
Okay. So if we need to add a variance, we can do that, obviously. So, okay. Noted.
Okay, so one of the other concerns and things we hear a lot is school impact, especially with multifamily housing. So we reached out when this proposal first came forward. We reached out to OTHS, District 90, and Central School District, and we asked them for student enrollment numbers in apartments and multifamily housing. And so they provided us with the student enrollment by address for, not names, just student enrollment numbers, for Aberdeen Village, Lake St. Ellen, Greenmount Lakes, Parkway Lakeside, 1301 Hartman, and Tamarack Woods. And so with that, we created a ratio based upon unit count of how many students of K through 12 age are in the school system based upon unit count. And we were even almost shocked to see that, so the one-bedroom apartments in O'Fallon and Shiloh generate very, very few students to the schools in K through 12. And that ratio was 185 apartment units of single bedroom per one student. So in the inverse, it's one student per 158 units. You're looking at the 2 and 3 bedroom apartments. Again, we were very surprised to see that it's 106 bedrooms per enrolled student. Lastly, townhomes, which we do have a number of in town, do have a little bit larger of that ratio at 11.55 bedrooms per enrolled student in K through 12 and O'Fallon school districts. So using that data and applied to the unit mix of Park Place proposed today, That would generate the approximate estimate of 10.4 students enrolled in grades K through 12 in the City of O'Fallon school districts. Mind you that this is OTHS and Central School District. However, the amount of property tax estimated that this development would pay are substantial. And so Central School District, using their current tax rates, would receive about $1.55 million annually in property taxes. OTHS would receive over $1 million. This was shared with the superintendents in the school districts, and I know Dr. Shackelford did a presentation on it at her school board meetings, and Dr. Rodriguez from Central School District wrote an opinion piece in the O'Fallon Weekly stating how the positive impact would be for this development. Lastly, the traffic study. I'd like to introduce Jeff Taylor.
All right, we'll give Grant a break here. Okay, so like any development, the city reached out to our third-party traffic consultant to perform a traffic impact study related to this project. That is CBB, so you may have, Lee Cannon's been to a few meetings in the past, so they work on behalf of the city. We contract through them, the developer pays their bill. The reason we do that is so we have an unbiased third party that's looking at this traffic study. It's not an engineer that the developer's hired that can make this study say potentially what they want to say. So with that, first thing that's done is they do an analysis to determine the number of trips that'll be generated based off this development. And that looks at all the different uses that are proposed, from residential, retail, entertainment. And what you see before you is what was done in the traffic study based on one of those previous submittals that were more dense, more multifamily, more bays, more rooms in the hotels. So I feel like this is definitely a more conservative study than the project that's come before us now that's being looked at to be improved. Grant talked about a lot of the access, ingress, egress to the site. Obviously, you have Veneta Road that's bringing the majority of the traffic up from Highway 50. The construction of a roundabout at the curve on Veneta where it curves and turns into Porter. Grant mentioned the intersection that currently exists at Veneta and the Sports Park that will become a signalized intersection. And with that, there'll be additional auxiliary turn lanes added to add, right turn lane into the sports park, left turn lane into development. All those improvements will be required to be done prior to any occupancy being granted for any of this uses. The other thing Grant mentioned was the pedestrian access. There is a pedestrian tunnel that's being proposed under Veneta to provide connection from the sports park over to this development. And in addition, the signalized intersection I mentioned, the sports park, will also have pedestrian accommodations for crosswalks and things of that nature. Additional improvements beyond just what you see right there on site, the study looked at the intersections further south. So we looked at the intersection of Veneta and the frontage road. We looked at Veneta Highway 50 and also the two intersections with the interchange at I-64. So that was all analyzed, determined what the impact would be based off this development, along with the additional trips that are being proposed. And then it takes it out and looks even 20 years beyond that, and it assumes a background growth of traffic. So we, first thing we did before we really got deep into the study was had a meeting set up with IDOT to go over a lot of their traffic analysis and numbers they have. They do counts typically about every 3 years, so they provided us that data. We found we're roughly seeing about a 1% growth annually. So that's what they put on all the traffic background growth in addition to the new trips that are being proposed with this site. So that's the data that was used to come to analysis of all these intersections. Off-site improvements that were proposed, the main one is improvements to the intersection of Veneta and Highway 50. And I'll skip ahead to an exhibit that shows what that looks like. So the main part of this is to add an additional eastbound left turn lane on Highway 50 to turn north to go up to Veneta. That will then continue 2 lanes north past the frontage road and then taper down to 1 lane as you go up over the existing bridge on Veneta Drive. In addition, the traffic study proposed a continuous southbound right turn on Veneta at Highway 50. So what that means is if I'm coming southbound on Veneta, I want to make a right to get on the interstate or head to Walmart, I won't have to stop any longer. You can continue to free flow around that. Now, if you're going to get on the interstate, you just stay in that right lane, get right on. If not, you merge and get into the existing westbound lane to continue on into town. So based off all these improvements, what the traffic study found is that if that intersection exists as it is today, no improvements are done, in 20 years, when you add that background growth, the level of service at that intersection will be less than if we do these improvements that are proposed and the development up north. So essentially what that's showing is by partnering with the developer, doing a lot of these offsite improvements, which will be 100% be required of them to pay for and do, we're actually going to improve the capacity and the level of service in this intersection over the long term. There were some questions on the study itself. The initial study was taking counts on a weekday. All that was analyzed for your AM and PM peak. That's typical. In addition, prior to this development being proposed, the city had CBB take a look at the sports park entrances on a tournament weekend. That was in April of 2023. So we had all that data already. So that data was utilized to take a look at the intersection of the sports park entrance at Veneta, and also extrapolated down to analyze the intersections of Veneta and Highway 50. And again, the same findings that I just mentioned before were found even on tournament weekends, that we'd see improvements. That is the majority of the traffic study. I'd be happy to answer any more specific questions related to it, if anyone has any.
Comments or questions from the committee?
Good luck.
Thank you.
Ross?
So who's paying for all these improvements?
The developer will be. The developer will be. And a portion of that, again, as Grant mentioned, through that pre-annexation agreement, their annexation fees will be credited, but that'll be a small portion of what it's going to cost to do these improvements.
State's approved all of what we're going to do here.
State has reviewed the traffic study. Prior to final approval, we'll have to submit an intersection design study that will go into all the geometric details of it. So that won't come until later, after more detailed plans are developed.
Indications, are there some heartburn?
There's not. We talked a lot about the additional left turn lanes, the free-flowing right. The only question still out there with them is frontage road and making sure that's a safe intersection with the additional traffic. The concern is that left turn off the frontage road. So more analysis is going to be to take a look at in that regard.
Yeah, if this project continues to move forward, they'd be required to do a full IDS, intersection design study on them. The plans you see today are probably, what would you estimate it cost to get us to this point? A couple $100,000 they've spent on these traffic plans? And so, through the next, if approved and continue to move forward in final approval, there would be probably 9 to 12 months more of just construction review, document review. So we talked about the buffering and looking at the sound and looking at the light. All that would be approved, because essentially they need approval to move forward to pay the engineers and open up all the plans that we get to review then for the next 16 months.
Other questions from the council?
So I learned more about the LOF's level of service levels in reading as much of this as I could ingest. A being free flow and F being just completely jacked up. My turn, not theirs.
Yes.
Are any of the focal points or the bottleneck points or whatever you want to call it, any of the problem areas, or more problem than not, are any of them F in this study? Because the way that I read it, it looked like there were a few that could be or are.
Yeah, so the one I just mentioned, the westbound eastbound approach on frontage road to Veneta would operate at an F, and that's due to just being at a stop-controlled condition right now. So trying to, say, go straight across to the IHOP or make a left to go north of Veneta, that would operate at a level F.
Is there an alternative for that, for the people coming off the frontage road? Is there a way to?
So, you know, your alternatives, it could be a couple. When speaking preliminarily with IDOT, they threw out the idea, oh, can you put in another signalized intersection right there at the frontage road? As close as that would be to the existing intersection with Highway 50 and Veneta, even if you put them in sync with each other, the concern there would be you stop that northbound traffic, it doesn't take long for it to back up on Highway 50. So, you know, I think we kind of ruled out that approach. One would be to potentially restrict a movement. You know, maybe you no longer allow people to turn left at the frontage road, and if they wanted to go to the sports park or go somewhere else, they make a right, get on Highway 50 and come up around that way. So that's another option that being considered.
Is that the only F?
I'd have to look at the study. I've got it pulled up in front of me here. Believe the frontage road, yeah, and then the same would hold true on the westbound approach, so coming out of the IHOP or the sleep in there, that's the other one that would be an F. But if I'm taking a look at it here.
I believe with these improvements, every turn-in motion improves. And so one thing, the long term, that we'll have to look at is the bridge. While the study says that with this development and where we're at today and with these improvements, all these traffic construction will make the area better. But in the footnote at the bottom, it says, with the natural growth of O'Fallon continuing at what it is, by 2050, the bridge needs to be, and that's kind of where it left it off. And so Jeff's already reached out to the design engineer that helped us build the bridge to see what can be done. Can we add another lane? Is there an at-grade crossing possible? Is there a terrible idea, but tear down and rebuild? But the issue you get into there is a complete rebuild of the bridge is probably $30, $40 million, much more than we can absorb in a single year project. So with the state and federal government, we can't go to them today and say, hey, we think we have this traffic study that says by 2050 this bridge needs to be expanded. We have to go through the engineering before we ever present a need for a grant application.
And I'll ask the question you just asked me. Any of these traffic studies look at the other side of the park?
No.
So, yeah, so the analysis.
I'm sorry, Tim, go ahead.
So the analysis that was done were the intersections I mentioned, the interchange at I-64, Veneta, Highway 50, up Simmons Road was looked at the entrance at the Parkstar Evergreen subdivision, but nothing off of Oberney from in or on the east side.
So we really don't know how this is going to affect Oberney from Monroe on the other side of the park at all.
Well, when they do the trips, they then take those trips and designate routes that people will take to get to the site. And the predominant assumption is that everyone's going to be coming up Veneta to get to this. You know, very, very limited use is going to be coming through Upper Nifferman and up around the sports park to access the site.
Along those lines, do you think it's likely that traffic from the north that currently comes down will use the east side instead of the improved side here, simply because of traffic? Like if we didn't study Over Newfoundland at State, there are people right now that don't use that route, but might in the future, so we just don't know how that.
I mean, myself, I live right up there, and a lot of times it depends where you're going. If you're getting on the interstate or heading to the west end of town, you're going to take Veneta and go around. If you're coming down Greenmount, going to Shiloh area or whatever, you're taking Over Nifferman. I don't envision that changing people's routes just because we put a signalized intersection at the sports park entrance. It's still a shorter trip to continue going that way.
Jeff, you guys had talked about it, the IDS study that would need to be done, especially for Veneta and the frontage road. Can you explain what that is and how it's different than what's already been done?
Yeah, so what they do in an intersection design study is they take this traffic data that's in the traffic study that was supplied online, And they use that to design that intersection. The main thing it's looking at the geometric turning movements. So you're adding the lane widening that's required, but then you're also then still making sure that large trucks can make turning movements. And then in addition, they look deeper into the traffic analysis and determine the amount of green time for every movement and time out the signal exactly on how it will work and be operational based on this traffic study. And that's just the first step in the process to design that intersection beyond this point. After the intersection design study is approved, that's when you get into full construction plans where they're taking a look at every last detail of that design. And like Grant said, I mean, you're at least a year here of just developing construction plans if this is approved.
So talking to developers and from Jeff's experience, so improvements listed here on the intersection would probably be in the range of somewhere between $4 and $6 million in construction on this intersection. Probably over $1 million for the lighted intersection and improvements at Sports Park Road, right outside of the golf facility. The extension of Porter and the internal road and the roundabout will probably be another couple million. So this is significant roadway projects that will be required. The developer will front this and pay for these improvements.
Yes, one more question. During this construction, will any of that be closed off?
So when you go to make the connections to Veneta to Porter, there will have to be a closure to be done. The one good thing about the location of that new roundabout that's being proposed, it's outside of that current curve on Veneta where it turns to Porter. So, and that takes a long time to build a roundabout. There's a lot of curb, there's a lot of storm sewer. So that could be constructed while the road's in use. And then really then all you're having to do is make that connection to those existing roads at that time. So, I mean, until we get further into the plans and we have specific traffic control plan and staging plan, I can't really define an exact period of time, but obviously we're gonna wanna make sure it's minimal closure. I will note though, I mean, that section of road was closed just a few years ago when we reconstructed the entire roadway also.
Any other questions or comments from council?
Okay, so moving on to the staff recommendations for the plan use and preliminary conditions. So staff recommends the approval of the preliminary plat with the plan use request for the following conditions. The plan use for development will include the uses outlined in the report, including the allowance of an alternative parking plan for Lot G with 463 parking spaces. The developer will only be allowed to reduce the parking space count under 644 for required improvements, but not to increase the square footage of construction over 118,800 feet square. B, allowance of an alternative parking plan on Lot J with 607 spaces. Similar to the last one, they will not be allowed to go under 726 for required improvements, but not to increase the number of residential units over 470. C is an allowance of a variance allowing 78% gross floor, while code requires less than 75% area of construction on Lot J. This is the townhomes. D, all commercial mechanical units must be screened. E, approval of liquor sales for on-site consumption. F, cross-access and covenants and restrictions are required for both parties in the maintenance of cross-access drives and signage. G, allowance of a variance allowing building footprints on lots 20 through 60 to exceed 30% maximum lot coverage, but shall not exceed 40%. Condition 2, the developer is subject to completion of a final traffic impact study and the resolution of roadway improvements required for the development from the City of O'Fallon and Illinois Department of Transportation. Number 3, the development is subject to final review of a sign package in accordance with the O'Fallon Code of Ordinances. Number 4, the development is subject to a final review of landscape package in accordance with the City of O'Fallon Code of Ordinances. Additionally, the developer will be required to plant additional natural buffering in the form of evergreen trees near the property lines of Lot I when single-family zone properties are on the other side of the tree line. Number 5, Lot J multifamily residential dwellings must be retained under one ownership due to shared amenities. And number 6, the hours of operation shall be as followed. Commercial entertainment and restaurants for summer months, April through September, will be allowed to operate from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. indoors, with coffee shops allowing to open at 6 a.m. Outdoor driving ranges or other outdoor entertainment, including patios, will be 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. October to March, the winter months, those indoor facilities will be allowed to operate from 8 to 11. Restaurants 8 to 11, with coffee shops opening up at 6, and the outdoor driving range and other outdoor entertainment from 10 to 9 p.m. Finally, commercial retail locations and offices will be allowed to operate from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Those are the staff-approved plan uses for this Park Place development.
Are there questions or comments on the condition? Committee? Council?
I was gonna say, are you gonna add a condition that a post-sound study happen? That if it turns out to be louder than expected, that additional buffering of some sort be? It's your committee, I was just asking, are you going to put that in?
Well, that's certainly something that we can consider. I think we,
One of the other things I saw, like looking into this, is another community that got a golf facility. You know, they were constantly sending public safety out there for noise complaints. I don't want to tax our PD any more than they're probably going to be with this whole development. So if there's something we can do to just like get it taken care of, you know, I'm hoping you just go that route.
okay,
We can do it now or we can do it later.
Right.
well,
I move that we make that recommendation that additional sound
okay.
barriers
Do we have a second?
study is done.
We have a motion to add that requirement now. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have, so, roll call.
Campbell,
Yes.
Vorse,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Parchman,
Yes.
and Roach.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So that change in condition will be added for the first reading if moves forward tonight on the next agenda.
Yes.
Ask a question about that. So when it goes to council next week, it'll be defined, like it won't just be, hey, you need a sound study. It'll be like we'll provide a sound study post-construction, and if the decibels are such and such, then additional.
Yes, so I will have to do some research.
Okay.
But yes, it will be more complicated than additional study.
I mean, there'll be some parameters that are like, we're looking for sound decibel variances that are less than X, essentially.
Yeah. Yep, I will find something that will meet the nature of what we're talking about. Meet the spirit of it. Yep. All right. So that's the zoning preliminary plat. We've talked about future land use maps. So the next part is the business district. So Illinois state law allows the creation of a business district. I mentioned earlier that we do have 7 existing business districts in the city of O'Fallon. They're very common for hotels and sales tax generators. And so the PGAV, who we've used for a long time, did a study and created the business district plan for the sports park. And so this proposed business district does include the Park Place development, the O'Fallon Family Sports Park, and the Old Base Factory. The reason why it includes the sports park is because that is the connection between the Old Base Factory and the Park Place development, who both went in to pay for this business district. So what that is, it means that this allows, is a state law that allows the developers and the property owners to collect an additional 1% tax on tangible goods and food and beverage. This is in addition to the taxes already collected by the city. So it is not a portion of the city's sales tax or part of the state sales tax. So when they go from a restaurant, it'll have Illinois tax, it'll have local tax, and it'll have sports park business district tax. So these developers, we talked about the roadway improvements and the pedestrian tunnels and the trails. Those will add up to well over $25 million. And so as the business district plan says, caps that allowable reimbursable costs at $20 million. So there's two items tonight. One is a state law to create the plan, and the other is a state law that allows the 1% collection. And so how the process works, again, we'll go later. The plan is you go in, if you buy dinner or you buy goods or retail, there's an extra 1% on your receipts. That money gets sent to the Illinois Department of Revenue or gets sent to the city of O'Fallon, depending on what tax it is. We keep that in a separate account. And then once the developer submits the money they've already spent on those improvements, we will reimburse the developer for those improvements. Now, they will probably spend that $15, $20, $25 million in year 1 or 2, but they will not collect money every year. They'll collect money over time, over the 23 years by law through the Illinois Business District law. There are many times in the city of O'Fallon that those developers do not recoup their total investment. It will really be on the performance of the business district and how many people they have shopping in there. So again, the first part of this would be to create a business district for the Park Place development in the Sports Park Business District in approximately 320 acres. I'll pause real quick. Questions for that?
Yes, this is to allow, to create the district to allow it. That doesn't mean it will happen.
That is all, well, the project has to be approved, correct. This creates the district.
They don't want to do it, they don't have to.
Correct, but they can. They were the ones that requested it.
The city doesn't have to for the sports park.
Correct. Yes, you're correct. So yes, there's two action items by law. One is to create the boundaries, and the other is to create the percentage.
I just want to make sure the word allow means
Allow.
not.
Yes, they don't have to. And so, again, we'll talk about the redevelopment agreement, which is now, is the agreement between the developers and the city of O'Fallon on how those costs get reimbursed. And so they provide a schedule of reimbursables, which include the acquisition of land and site preparation, and all of these are laid out in law. There's a very specific dollars that they can spend. You know, you can't put on paying your employees or buying kegs of beer on there. It has to go to site preparation and public infrastructure. And so the cost of acquisition of land and site preparation is estimated at $8 million. Retaining walls, detention, drainage, and stormwater, $1.5 million. Public streets are $6 million. Upgrades in water lines and public utilities at $1 million. I mentioned earlier they will be moving the Ameren transmission lines. It's estimated at $4 million for that. And finally, the trails, tunnels, buffering, and landscaping is estimated at $6 million. So the redevelopment agreement allows for the business district collected within this Park Place development only, so not 1% from Central Park or 1% from anywhere else. It has to be generated on this development to be put into account and then reimbursed back to them once they've already completed these projects and to submitted us proof of payment. In addition, in the Finance Committee meeting today, we opened up an ordinance that allows an amusement tax to be collected in the city of O'Fallon. So because this development includes a high level of amenities like golf and rock climbing, things that don't sell tangible goods or food and cannot collect the 1% sales tax, they will collect 5% amusement tax on those goods. So their receipt will be $25 for Golf Bay, 5% Park Place entertainment tax. Same way as a business district, it goes back to pay them for those public infrastructure improvements they have already paid for and completed. It cannot go for operations or employees or anything like that. And so the redevelopment agreement is capped according with the Illinois state law for business districts at 23 years, or we negotiated the maximum reimbursable for those costs at $20 million. So if they go and spend $29 million on roads and power poles and all drainage and all that stuff, it's still capped at $20 million.
What we've done here is created another TIF.
TIF is property
We're
tax.
not calling it a TIF.
TIF is property tax. And TIF takes,
It's a TIF.
TIF uses tax money, property taxes from other taxing bodies.
At the end of 23 years, if they've done the 1% and the 5%, that goes away?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, comments or questions from council? Yes, sir.
That's what I was gonna ask. I already asked about the business district
Mhm.
tax, that's capped
Mhm.
and 23 years sunset, whatever. The same for the entertainment
Yes.
tax?
Yes.
That's limited, okay. Okay. Any other questions or comments from,
The entertainment tax, if they don't meet the 20 million, it will go until they reach it. So it may go longer than 23 years.
No, she's not accurate.
Then it was my
Appreciate it, but
misunderstanding.
no.
Cancel mine.
It's 23 years because the tool in which it is created is the redevelopment agreement. The redevelopment agreement is only active for 23 years or a $20 million cap.
okay, thank you. Thanks for that clarification. Okay. I think we can proceed with the,
And so just to recap real quick how business districts and amusement taxes work. So Pure Property Group is developer and their partners will put in the roads, they'll move the Ameren lines, they'll site grade, they'll spend that money up front. That's their private dollars. They will then submit to us all their receipts and reimbursables. We go through it with our attorneys and our finance director, and we validate that these are public improvements. Jeff's staff and Public Works will look at them, they'll inspect them to make sure they meet our criteria, and once we accept them, then we will reimburse them through that money that they have generated through these sales tax. So in years, let's just say years 2 and 3, the business district may generate $50,000, and that's all they receive. So,
okay, all right.
so questions?
So, any other questions or comments for clarification from committee? Any questions or comments from council? Clarification or, okay?
And
Okay.
Sandy stands corrected. I apologize for that. It is 23 years. Sorry.
Thank you, Sandy.
And
Okay.
also the 5%, 1% is being held by the city for administrative costs.
Right, okay,
So it's 4% that is reimbursed back to the developer.
okay, thank you for that clarification.
4% or is it 5, and then you have the 1%?
It's 5% total. 4% to the reimbursed and then 1% to the city.
So the city's making money off of it.
Okay.
I think it's important to say it's not a TIF. TIFs affect the schools right away through property taxes. This doesn't affect the property tax at all. It's like a use tax.
Yep.
Only the people who use it and pay are going to pay the tax.
Correct.
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 Yep. If you don't go to the shops or do the amenities, you won't pay the tax.
That's right. Okay. All righty. So as we said at the outset, once we have gone through the presentation that we've just seen, and committee members and council have had opportunity to ask questions or get clarification, we would open this up then to members of the public who are here who wish to comment or ask questions about the presentation this evening.
Let me start over.
Are there questions or comments from the public who are here? Yes, sir.
I have a bunch of questions.
Could you start by stating your name?
And which show?
My name's Daniel Clark. I live basically 200 yards from the golf course that we're putting up. So I have several questions and some comments. So my first question is where is everybody? All these empty seats?
Well, this is a committee meeting, not a council meeting.
This is a committee. Well, so some of the people that were here last time, I don't see here.
That was a council meeting, this is just a committee.
So we're not missing people that have to vote?
No.
Okay. All right, that was my question. So second, we talked about the noise, but we haven't talked about the pickleball courts that are gonna be on the outside of right in my backyard again. So can we get noise on those?
Just go ahead and ask your questions. We'll document them and answer them all in a group.
Okay, so asking about the pickleball courts. The next one is, are people going to want to buy apartments in this complex right next to the golf place? And are they going to want to buy my home when I need to sell it? So, and then I see you talking a lot about the elevation of the buildings from the street, but I don't understand, who cares about that when I have 100-yard poles sticking up out of the ground and lights all over the place? It's inconsequential, the height of the buildings. Nobody cares about that. So the next question somebody asked about last time. So if you go in my backyard, and I invite you to do that, the erosion is pulling my backyard out into the creek. And then if we're gonna put buffer zones up that you're talking about, it's just gonna run off into there more. So am I responsible for that when my backyard starts going away? So then I also want to give you an update. The storm that came through last week knocked down a bunch more of the trees that are in the backyard, and now it's even easier to see right through to where that's going to be. And as we've already mentioned, pine trees aren't going to grow fast enough to cover that for about 10 years. And then so we talked about these mythical, or I don't know, magic, I'll call them magic nets that are going to stop the sound. Are these nets, I mean, nets are made of holes, right? But can you hear me through my shirt okay? I mean, that's how it works. So if I got to give a lesson on sound, I'll stick around afterwards. Next, we're trying to get money from all these customers that are at or the millions of people that you guys are saying attend the sports park. But what happens in the winter when nobody's there? Is that a gamble for businesses to put something in when there's not going to be anything there for months? There's not going to be any customers? Because that's where we said the customers are coming from. And then, and it's obvious, this is more of a comment than a question, but it's obvious to me that all we're going to do is move Fairview down another mile, and the people that are begging for money on the corner are now going to be on my corner, and I don't feel safe near that. And it won't be a matter of time until we have a vape shop and a Dollar General and a weed dispensary in these buildings, because they're going to need to be filled by somebody, and nobody wants to buy them. And then I think it was I'm not sure who said it last time, one of the developers said he couldn't think of a better place to put the Topgolf light facility. Sir, I got a suggestion for you if you want to stick around after. I'll tell you where we should put it. All right. And then your cone of sound on here, there is no science to that at all. I'm looking at it, it makes no sense at all. And it is not 500 yards from the houses. I could hit it with a 9-iron, and I'm not a very good golfer at all. And then I'm going to finish up last week with the gentleman who's not here. It was very upsetting that one of us spoke that was not happy with this, and he cut her off, and she was only speaking about 6 minutes when we had to listen to about an hour and a half of this. And then even worse than that, the same person, as soon as it was over, I had to watch him slapping 5 with the developers and joking, smoking and joking with him. It wasn't cool. It was unprofessional and, in my opinion, unethical. And I hope I don't see that again. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I'm Joe Millett. I'm in Park Bridge too. If you could go back to your notes, we had, it's to note 5.
Well, I'm actually keeping track of questions.
Okay, so I don't know how to word it right. That's why I was saying. So you're talking about the multifamily units. It had to stay all together, right? I think under that single deed or however you word that. My question was, are the single units that way too? The single rooms, because it said multifamily only. And my concern is, it seems like there's going to be a lot of turnover in there, right? Are they able to break those units out, or does the whole unit, all of the units in that have to stay together, like the multifamily ones, or the single ones separate? Does that make sense? You understand? That's my question.
Okay. Other comments or questions? Yes, ma'am.
Grant, are you able to go requested it last time, and that was why, is because I did want to show everybody how close our house is going to be to the red of where these people will be teeing off, where all the music's going to be playing, where all the hooting and hollering is. We moved into this house just because of having the trees and having it quiet in our backyard, and I guess there is no guarantee of what's going to go behind you, but my question, I guess, is I would like to know from where our house is, I want the exact distance to that red zone. And we can already hear the sports park across the street, so I don't know how this golf facility is going to be silenced magically, because it's not possible. And having it open till 10 o'clock at night and having to listen to that in our backyard all night long, it's all year long too. I mean, if that facility is going to be open year round, we're going to be hearing it year round. It's probably going to be heated, so I'm sure it's going to draw in people in the winter possibly. So that was just my comment on that. And as far as the noise and having that checked, is that also going to include not just the golf, but like the music and everything? The sound, the people, the hoot and hollering, like will that be in the study that's going to be done? Because it's not just the golf, it's everything that comes with this golf facility. So I would like to find out if we can find the distance from our particular house, because I do feel we are the closest to this facility. And then my last question is, two questions, sorry. Will trees be planted immediately? Because it's going to take 10 years for an evergreen to grow full. So is this berm that's going to get put up and trees, is that going to start right away before, I guess, as soon as we get the roads going, are we going to start this berm? Because that's a long time to wait for a buffer. And then my last comment. What guarantee do we have that any of these shops and restaurants don't become a Dollar General or a vape shop or something? I mean, it sounds lovely. There are shops that are probably going to go in there that I'm going to absolutely be ecstatic to live by. But when those don't pan out and Dollar General comes in, where is the guarantee that they can't? Is there one? I'm looking for an answer.
We'll answer. Good question.
Okay.
We'll answer.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Okay, that's probably sufficient to begin to deal with those, and so go ahead.
Yeah, so the pickleball courts, if they move forward with pickleball courts, they've just kind of been drawn on paper at this point, would follow the same conditions as every other sound level, golfing, ambient sound. I know I'm jumping around here a little bit, but again, covering this one, outdoor music, patios, pickleball, golf, whatever it is, it's sound. And so that'll all be included in the condition the council or the committee asked for the next one. Multifamily units. So I think I know what you're asking, but so the villas and the single family will all be sold fee simple. They'll be their own ownership. The multifamily housing on that entire lot, which includes the breezeways, the townhomes, and that large rectangular unit, all have to be under one ownership.
Yeah, so you were talking about shared amenities, right? But in the back, it looked like a lot of, what was it, 66?
Townhomes will also have to be included in that shared ownership because they're going to be in the same group. Correct. Yep. Exact distance to the red zone, I'll get that to you. I can't do it right now, but trees planted immediately. Trees will be planted in the construction phase. And so if it's December when they're getting ready to do that grading, we'll probably give them till March or something like that. But we do require all the plantings and landscaping to be done prior to building occupancy and the inspection phases. We'll guarantee of other uses in shopping. So the plan use allows flexibility, but it also includes rigidity. There we go. And so the uses have to be specifically laid out. And so what you can't do, we can't do large shopping plazas. This will not be approved for off-site alcohol consumption. It will not be approved for cannabis dispensaries. Cannabis dispensaries aren't approved in the city of O'Fallon anywhere. And so all of those things are additional in those planned uses. So in the event that somebody says, hey, I want to put a Dollar General here, it would have to come back and do this whole thing all over again to be approved.
So we're talking, I'm sorry,
Oh, I timed out myself. I would say realistically, if this moves forward, April, May timeframe, we're probably, we do have Nick Smock, who was one of the engineers in TWM, and Jeff Taylor, who's an engineer. They take the most time. It's probably 9 to 12 months that we're going back and forth on design plans. And that's not even talking about the construction plans, the actual buildings. Realistically, I think when Michael Hamburg, who's not here tonight, met with the neighbors of Parks Harbor Green, he said if the project is complete in 7 years, he would think it's a wild success. So these things take a long time. They're built in phases. You know, the retail buildings, it's not like they're just gonna come in and drop it all at one time. You know, they'll probably build the larger apartment building. State construction will probably start on some of the villas, because those are a little bit simpler to build. And then the retail will fill up as they kind of fill them up with users.
And what about the office building?
I don't know time frame on that one yet.
Would it be like in the beginning, the middle, or the end, or you don't know?
I don't know. I've kind of asked them, and they didn't know yet, so. Okay.
Please remember, we're in very preliminary stages of this. So there's a lot yet to be, a long ways to go in the discovery process as we go through and look at all the details and work through those. Those involve time and money to get through, and so what we're looking at this point really is to get to a yes, that we're interested in seeing this go forward, and then we'll have to work out the details as we go through. We've already set some preliminary ground rules that we hope serve us well all the way through this process. So that's the objective here this evening. So with that said, this committee needs to go through the...
1 second while I figure this out.
Basically go through the formal process of our recommendations to full council.
More public comment?
Yeah. Are there other public comments, or? Sure, please.
I gotta do that again.
Terry Hyman, I live on Arbor Green. So not including the single-family villas or duplexes, so forth, the multifamily and the retail, I assume that's going to be separate parcels, is that correct?
You can keep on and answer your questions.
Okay.
I'll answer.
The duplexes, is that 40 units or is that 80 units? And then regarding the business district, I guess depending on your answer to the parcels, should the residential areas of the development be included since they do not generate a sales tax? And I ask that for my own future benefit. You're setting a precedent, and I hope to be developing some ground, and so I hope you do include it, but just keep in mind you're setting a precedent. I'll note that the 55 decibels that's talked about, it doesn't impact me, I don't think, but that is the average range of a dishwasher. So, and then the traffic study numbers, I couldn't see that on your thing. How many additional cars per day are we estimating? That's all I got.
Are there other comments or questions from the public?
Vern Miller, Ward 3. Question 1. So if I go out to the sports park and the sports whatever and get a hot dog and a soda or whatever, so I'm gonna have to pay 1% more. Number 2, on the old base factory, how did they get thrown into the deal? Because no development's been done there yet and it's still sitting there vacant and had no idea. Number 3, about your traffic study. Look back here, approximately a year ago, the state of Illinois went out and did some work there on 50 to extend that tongue down so more cars could get over the slide to turn on Veneta. Well, that really worked out great because they're still backed up. So how long are they going to run that tongue now up to? Almost up to the intersection to be able to make that work so they can slide the cars over and go through. That's just an idea that they need to extend that tongue a lot longer, or maybe all the way up to the intersection there where you drive through. Number 4, the golf scenario. I don't know how tall these posts are going to be. I don't care what they're made out of. I'm just concerned about the height of them. Anywhere from maybe, I would figure they're more than 100 to maybe 150 foot tall, possibly. I'd like that to be answered. And on the buildings, between J and G on the lots, there's a 5-story building going in there, if I'm correct, and it shows it's really quite short compared to the height of the golf sticks they're going to stick up in the air to try and catch the sound. Number 5, your retention area. I would like to ask the Public Works people, are they comfortable with the way the drainage is designed? Since this is all going to be draining into Ogle Creek, and all these retention areas, according to what you're telling me, are all going to be connected together, run out the back, and run into Ogle Creek. Just want to be concerned that this is a good design of this. And let's see, number 8. It's interesting that this has been brewing for 2 years. They've been fine-tuning it, but within 30 days, they're going to get approval. So I'm not completely against it. I think it's a waste of valuable farm ground, which it was years ago, and I still need to see that we need to grow crops and not grow buildings. Thank you.
Are there other comments or questions from the public? Okay. I'm going to pause here and respond to some of those.
Okay, the question about multifamily and retail and separate parcels in the final plat, yes, I predict that they will be on separate parcels. The 2-family villas, 48 units, they're actually 20. And so there'll be lots 20 through 60. Or what is it? No, let's go back.
20 through 60.
20 through 60, yeah. And so in the next revision, which we received Friday, which I mentioned the lots are pushed further south, the lots are actually combined on the 2-family duals. The 2-family villas will actually be 1 lot each, and they'll be condoed out, which is the market and what State Construction does on their villas. They've built on Wesley and Seven Hills Road. So 2 villas, or one building, 2 villas, and then when completed, they condo them because the property actually stays in the HOA. They're full service through the HOA. They mow the grass, they rake the leaves, they patch the driveway if they need to, and so that's what that'll look like. Should residential be included? Nope, you gotta come up back for the question, we're done.
It's 40.
It's 40.
40 units for the duplexes.
Should residential be included in the business district? The property's all owned by the same person on the parcel, and that's what was included in the business district study. How many additional cars per day estimate? I'm not sure if Jeff was able to get that.
Yeah, so table 1 of the traffic study, the trip generation, the weekday AM peak hour, a total of 638 total. That includes in and outs. And weekday PM peak, 1,045 total, including both the ins and outs of the development.
How did the old base factory get into this? So they requested it as well, but In order to get to this point, the business district study has to be performed by PGAV. That cost is, we just did one, it's about $17,000. So we told the old Base Factory, don't do one by yourself, do one in partnership, and so that's how that got included. They are not entitled or eligible for the 1% reimbursement like proposed tonight unless they come back in front of the city council with a redevelopment agreement. Lastly, extend the tongue, yes, it will be.
And that one is referencing the westbound left turn lane on Highway 50 Bonita. In addition to making it longer, a second left turn is also going to be installed. So dual lefts to turn from Highway 50 to go up Bonita.
Thank you for that. Okay. Are there,
Related, you had the one related to the detention ponds. No concerns with the design as it's currently proposed. They provide phase 1 drainage report. The majority of the site drains to Ogles Creek, so that is where it needs to continue to drain. We'll make sure it goes there currently. That whole ground drains that way now, so they're going to have to provide stormwater detention to meet our code to ensure the runoff rate it meets existing runoff rates are below. I think what I've researched online, usually around 150 is what I've seen for most of the facilities.
And the building either in J or G is going to be a 5-story, right?
Correct.
okay. Okay, are there other questions or comments from the public? Okay.
Okay, so moving forward, we have a number of motions as part of this project. I'll just go through them one by one. 2.3, staff's recommendation, motion to approve on first reading, an ordinance amending the future land use map for the city of O'Fallon for low-density residential and mixed-use neighborhood district for the development known as Park Place.
Okay.
I don't know if I usually don't read those off, do I?
Good.
You want to do it?
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. Are there
Don't know who got that
any
second. Keep track
comments
of this?
or questions?
Okay. Greg's keep track of it.
Okay. Seeing none, roll call.
Vorse,
Yes.
Roach,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yep.
Parchman.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes. Okay.
Motion 2.2, staff's recommendation, motion to approve a resolution authorizing the, 2.4, motion to approve a resolution authorizing the mayor to sign a pre-annexation agreement with Pier Property Group for approximately 80.19 acres located at 1354 Porter Road and 1362 Porter Road, O'Fallon, Illinois. More specifically, parcel numbers, yeah, you got it.
Okay.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second? There is a second. We have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions from the committee? Okay. Hearing none, roll call.
Roach,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Parchman.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Vorse.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe you ought to make a comment that what we're voting on here is just to send it to council.
Exactly. That's what we said earlier. This is just simply recommendation to the
There'll be
council.
lots of opportunities to discuss this, at least 2 city council meetings.
Right.
Right. Okay, motion 2.5, motion to approve on first read an ordinance annexing certain territory containing 80.19 acres located at 1354 Porter Road and 1362 Porter Road, O'Fallon, Illinois.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions from the committee? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Albrecht,
Yep.
Parchman.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Vorse.
Yes.
Roach.
Yes.
Okay, Okay, motion two, or item 2.6, motion to approve on first reading an ordinance amending ordinance 643 zoning districts of the city of Wolf Island, Illinois, development known as Park Place, generally located on the western side of Anita Drive, adjacent to the O'Fallon Family Sports Park, north of Taylor Road. It includes the following conditions in addition to the one made earlier by the committee.
As amended.
As amended.
As amended.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any comments or questions from the committee? Okay, hearing none, roll call.
Parchman,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Vorse,
Yes.
Roach,
Yes.
Albrecht.
Yes.
2.7, motion to approve a resolution approving a preliminary plat for the development known as Park Place.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments from the committee? Hearing none, roll call.
Campbell,
Yes.
Force,
Yes.
Roach,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Parchman.
Yes.
2.8, motion to approve an ordinance establishing and designating the Sports Park Business District and approving the Sports Park Business District plan with the city of Wolf Island, Illinois.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Questions or comments from the committee? Hearing none, roll call.
Vorse,
Yes.
Roach,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yep.
Parchman.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
2.9, motion to approve an ordinance establishing and imposing certain business district taxes in the city of Wolf Island Park Place Business District.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments from the committee? Hearing none, roll call.
Roach,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Parchman.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Vorse.
Yes.
2.10, motion to consider on first reading an ordinance authorizing execution of a redevelopment agreement with Pure Property Group.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Questions or comments from the committee? Hearing and seeing none, roll call.
Albrecht,
Yep.
Parchman.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Vorse.
Yes.
Roach.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, committee, the items will be seen next week, Monday, April 7th, 2025. No, I'm sorry, that's 2 weeks from now. April 7th at 7 p.m. for the first reading of City Council at City Hall. From there, if proceeded, it will go to Community Development for second readings on Monday, April 14th, and lastly, City Council for second readings on April 21st. I will mention that the resolutions require only one reading, so those will only appear on the meeting on April 21st, while the ordinances, which all require 2 readings, will appear on both meetings.
Thank you. Okay. I think that is all the business that we have on the agenda for this evening. Thank you all for coming, and
Can I make a comment?
yes.
I've been doing this for a bunch of years, and if it had been anybody else involved in this development but the 2 guys sitting here in front, I'd have voted no. But we're putting a great deal of trust in them and their history with this city, and it's been good. So that made me feel better. So just, there's lots of opportunity to talk about this, so the public has got a lot of opportunity to talk about it.
Yes, I do. Okay, thank you. Okay, I think that concludes our business this evening. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Motion and a second. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, we are adjourned.